Last year, a man by the name of Andrew Miller was found by police wearing fake silicone implants in women's undergarments, while also being in the company of someone under the legal age, whom he snatched off the streets. Andrew Miller, who also identifies as Amy George, was in the process of transitioning from a man to a woman, and for all the wrong reasons. You see, Miller had some quite despicable plans in mind during his transition. More specifically, he planned to prey on young innocent people. He would put on his makeup, along with his wig and fake silicone implants. He would wear feminine clothes to look deceiving. Then he would hop into his car and look for vulnerable people, specifically young ones, doing his best to look as non-threatening and womanly as possible. And sadly, it worked. Miller would then lure a young innocent person into his car as she was walking home to her house. He initially offered her a lift back home. Of course, it was all an act of manipulation. Miller instead took her to his 3-bedroom detached bungalow in a residential street. The victim said she had accepted the offer to get into the car because she was cold, and believed the quote lady to be non-threatening. She asked repeatedly to be taken home, pleading with Miller to be released from the situation he put her in. And by no surprise, he said no, and strangely enough, he says that she was now the new member of the family, which is a pretty horrible and creepy thing to say in general. In the interview with police, the girl goes into details about the awful and horrendous things that she was subjected to while in Miller's company, but she also claims that Miller forced her to watch, quote, weird things, which I can only assume would be the P word. It was only by a miracle that she was able to contact the police and escape. But it was only until Andrew finally fell asleep that she was able to carefully find a phone and contact police. Only the worst, unimaginable things would have happened if she was unable to escape. Andrew Miller, who's also a father of 3, lived alone, and he was still sleeping when the officers arrived to arrest him. The girl later told police that she was unable to get a bus ride home and decided to walk. This was when she was approached by a, quote, lady in a car who offered to give her a lift. The police described her fear as palpable when she was rescued from Miller's home. Miller desperately told the police that he had stopped to help the child because she, quote, looked freezing. He said it was the motherly thing to do and that he was being a good Samaritan. The judge previously described the crimes against the victim as a realization of every parent's worst nightmare. Andrew Miller was addressed as a male at the High Court in Edinburgh. He subjected his victim to a series of SAs for over 27 hours, while also making her watch some pretty traumatizing content. But during the police interview, Miller told detectives that he did not take the young individual off the streets. He claims that it was all a mistake, saying that he only stopped because she looked freezing. But keep in mind, he trapped the victim in his home for 2 nights. Following Miller's arrest, 3 laptops were seized from his home, and a total of 242 indecent images of young individuals were found. The Edinburgh judge described Miller's acts as brazen and chilling. Despite claiming that he had good intentions, Miller pleaded guilty on all charges. He was then sent to a male prison in accordance with the new guidelines for UK trans prisoners who commit offenses. He was also given a 20-year sentence, with an additional 8 years of licensed supervision, and indefinitely placed on the offender registry. But recently, there's been some interesting updates on this case. Andrew Miller is fighting to have his sentence reduced. He's launched a legal bid against the courts to challenge the 20-year length. He now has a defense advocate named Victoria Dow. She says that after being jailed, Miller was moved to an enhanced unit in Ratho Prison, Edinburgh. This is because the prison system considered him as trustworthy based on his good behavior. Even Victoria Dow says that the 28-year sentence was too excessive for him, while also claiming that Miller's psychological difficulties should be taken into account. And because this is his first offense on a serious issue, she defends him by saying that there's too many obstacles in his life that shouldn't be overlooked in this case. Within Ms. Dow's defense, she says that Miller had a background of excessive alcohol consumption and watching the P word. Ms. Dow also says that Miller recognizes the impact of his actions and feels a, quote, enduring sense of shame. He also expressed concern with how his behavior would affect the wider trans community. He's no longer in contact with his family and no longer gets the support that he otherwise needed. As of now, a written decision will soon be released in the future. Many justice systems seem way too lenient on people like Andrew Miller, We simply need to protect our children and keep these monsters locked behind bars or in the confines of a rehabilitation center. I personally don't see any type of rehabilitation for somebody like this. What he did to his victim will undoubtedly leave long-lasting trauma that she's got to deal with. Situations like this need to be taken more seriously, and I can give you an example. We got the old Subway guy, Jared Fogle, who's set to be released very soon. This is the same guy who had terabytes worth of indecent content of young individuals. Not just gigabytes, terabytes. There's another guy named Joseph Fritzl who kept his daughter captive for 24 years. She was forced to live in the confines of a soundproofed room where no one can hear her. He also impregnated her, I believe it was 7 times. Yes, his very own daughter. She was around 11 or 12 when he took full captivity over her. Though unfortunately, Joseph may possibly be eligible for parole in March of this year. The interesting thing is that it's been ruled by judges that this man is no longer dangerous, and now he has dementia, which in my opinion really doesn't change things. If anything, he's probably even crazier now. He has the benefit of not remembering any of the disgusting things that he's done or will do in the future. I would honestly say that the prison inmates do a better job at handling these creeps. This is kinda off topic of the video at hand, but I still can't get over the fact that Jared Fogle had terabytes worth of child content. It's just honestly crazy to me. Like, how much was enough for him? This man was trying to reach a high score on how much he had. He was going to reach petabyte numbers. I actually had to look up the measurement that was bigger than a terabyte, a petabyte. There's no way that Jared Fogle is going to be normal after prison. I really just don't see it. This same sentiment goes for Andrew Miller as well, and all the other creeps out there. These type of people really don't change. They just find ways to hide what they do. And once they get more comfortable in the outside world again, they will probably resort back to their old ways. Just because Andrew Miller has had good behavior behind bars, that doesn't mean that he should be given a lighter sentence. And he still doesn't understand fully the reason why he was arrested to begin with, which is a good indicator that he probably needs to be under supervision at all times. Someone who doesn't understand the consequences of their actions can be a dangerous person. So yeah, these are just a few examples of some of the monsters who may be back on our streets again. I simply don't see any type of rehabilitation for people like this. I just wanted to shed a little more light on this case that's going on. And if Andrew Miller's case does get reduced, then that will say a lot about the justice system. Anyway, that's about all I've got for this video. Hopefully I'll catch you in the next one.